House.
I understand the next call is a split call. 5 minutes. Sue Moroney.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Can I start my contribution to the debate on this bill by also acknowledging the 29 men who died in the Pike River mine tragedy and their families, because, Mr Speaker, they suffered from losing one of the most fundamental rights at work. The fundamental right to walk out the door in the morning, go to work, do your job and return home safely to your loved ones. And sadly, for far too many New Zealand workers, including the 29 at Pike River Mine, that hasn't happened. And the fact that that hasn't happened is a blight on our country and on our country's laws, and that's what we are attempting to resolve today. But, Mr Speaker, can I say at the outset, yes, we have learned a lesson. Can we please never, ever forget it? Because history is sometimes there to repeat itself. And this is one piece of history that must never repeat itself. We must never have to relearn the lesson about deregulation of the workforce and in the workplace and the tragedies that it actually leads to. Because to me, Mr Speaker, that is the lesson of Pike River Mine and other tragedies. They are not things that were accidents. They didn't just happen. They were designed to happen, and they happened through poor design. And that's what the Royal Commission told us. We must never unlearn that lesson again. I don't want, in a decade's time, to ever hear any parliamentarian in this House argue for deregulation in the workplace. Because today we are accepting, I think right across parties, unanimously in the House, that deregulation risks health and safety for workers. And I expect that if everyone is genuine about their commitments to this debate, that they are accepting that premise. And if they are accepting that premise, then can I say to the government that it can't just happen in isolation. It's not just one bill that needs to accept that reality. It is in fact all of the employment legislation before this House that needs to understand that reality. That to just accept deregulation risks workers' health and safety in this bill and not in others is to pay lip service. It's to pay lip service to learning the lessons of the Pike River Mine tragedy and others. I say this, Mr Speaker, because earlier today I was on the Transport and Industrial Relations Select Committee, and we were debating and discussing another piece of legislation before the House on employment rights. And that piece of legislation does further deregulate the workplace. And it's not this bill, and that's my point, Mr Sabin, is that it's not okay just to recognise that deregulation is a bad thing when it comes to this bill. It actually needs to be right across the board, because the bill, Mr Sabin, that we were discussing actually reduces workers' rights to... My point, Mr Sabin, is that it actually reduces workers' rights to having a lunch break and rest periods. That is a fundamental health and safety issue. And, Mr Speaker, that the members opposite don't seem to get that gives me no comfort, because they can pass this bill and think they've done their job, but if they continue to deregulate other parts of the workplace, they are not honouring the lesson that needs to have been learnt from Pike River Mine and those other tragedies. And they need to be serious about this, not just with this piece of legislation, but with every other single piece of legislation that attempts to deregulate the workplace that they currently have before this Parliament. Mr Speaker, I am proud to stand and support this bill, and I urge the government to take this issue seriously with regard to other pieces of legislation.
I call Denise Roach.
Thank you, Mr.